Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and I continue with Arcanum of Steamworks and Magick Obscura, Blind. Now I'm here on the Half-Ogre island, and why is Magnus so slow? I guess he's heavily encumbered. I'm here on the Half-Ogre island, and I've discovered some evidence of pretty gruesome and horrible experiments having to do with breeding, purposefully breeding half-ogres by basically raping human females to the point where they actually all die in the end, because it has been established during the experiments that not only is the half-ogre pregnancy fatal to a human woman 100% of the time, but even if they resorted to a C-section, she could at most produce 3 half-ogre children before her body basically fell apart from the abuse. So that's a not a pretty visual, but you know, that's what the game gives you to imagine. But apart from this empty laboratory, because it's in fact empty, it has been since deserted, and a journal that describes some of the experiments, there seems to be nothing else on this island, which is both a little disappointing to me and a little surprising. So let me just make a final round. Well, first, at least, I guess, let me just take a final look at the inside of the laboratory itself. Maybe I overlooked some kind of a hidden passage or something. I took a look into the safe. There's nothing here apart from some trash. I cannot click on anything else, it seems. Not on bones. Yeah, this seems there's nothing here, which, as I said, is both a little bit disappointing and a little bit surprising. So let me just make a final round across the island to make sure there is no more waypoints. And to be honest, there aren't even, from what it seemed at least last time, there aren't even any random encounters on the island, which again is both weird and kind of weirdly creepy, because it seems it's entirely deserted, even of wildlife. Well, I guess that's it. Let's go back then. That was shorter and less, like, what's the word? Less detailed than I anticipated. Are you ready to return to Caladon, sir? Yes. Okay, so he actually brought me back to Caladon instead of Ashbury, which is in fact better, because the quest giver, Arthur Tyrone, resides in Caladon, and he would want to take a look at this journal, which details the actual experiments. He lives at the end of the street here. Or was it on the other side of town? I don't quite remember. Adam Maxwell, that's not him. That's that's an expert trap maker or something. Was it not here? I'm glad you are here. You were working with Tyrone, were you not? Oh, did the gnomes already kill him? Because I can't fail to notice that this is indeed a gnome standing in what I believe I now realize is Arthur Tyrone's house, and Arthur Tyrone is no longer here. And of course, this whole conspiracy was concerning gnomes to begin with, so it's totally not out of the question that he's already dead. Who are you? What is Tyrone? I do not know. I was meant to meet him here, to exchange information. To be honest, I kind of don't believe you. What have you done with him? Although, I guess maybe it's safer to play along, at least at first. Oh really? And what information would that be? Information that is dangerous to possess. I've been on the same search as Tyrone and his colleagues, but I believe I have gone much deeper. What have you discovered? I should be asking you that. You've recently acquired something damning to a certain parties, have you not? Perhaps? I see you are wary. This is smart, as the trail we are following is a dangerous one. He thinks for a moment. Very well, I will share with you the information I have gathered, so you can decide for yourself whether to believe me or not. I'm not certain how much of this do I believe myself, but this is what I found out. I am listening. About 50 or 55 years ago, a group of gnomes from the various parts of Arcanum began to acquire large amounts of money from investments in new technology. As their wealth and perceived influence began to grow, age-old prejudices began to surface. Gnomes were thought to be miserly thieves. The other races did not trust them to gain power. There were thefts, beatings and threats, mysterious letters in the night warning the little gnomes to keep their place. The gnomes trained human bodyguards to no avail. Any human that would be a bodyguard to a gnome at the time was by definition an untrustworthy, shiftless sort. At first they tried, unsuccessfully, to breed elves and orcs into some bestial magical hybrid to do their biddings. Yeah, that's the skulls of the Siamese twins, right? The Siamese twins? Exactly. But you know all about what happened with them, don't you? It was a foolhardy idea to begin with, at any rate. Orcs have a natural dislike for gnomes, and the gnomes needed something much more docile. I'm listening. The next obvious choice seemed to be half-ogres, tired of being hunted and the promise of large amounts of tired of being hunted and the promise of the large amount of food gained the gnomes an extremely loyal bodyguard. This sentence does not seem to make sense to me, which has happened a number of times in Arcanum already, where I read a sentence and it seems grammatically incorrect to me, to the degree that I have difficulty understanding what it means at first, because tired of being hunted and the promise of large amount of food, it doesn't make sense to me. Shouldn't it be I don't know, the prospect of no longer being hunted and the promise of a large amount of food gained the gnomes extremely loyal bodyguards or something, or with the ogres tired of being hunted and with the promise of the large amount of food, it gained gnomes extremely loyal bodyguards. I don't understand how this sentence is supposed to work in its current state, but I guess I do get the general gist, and that's most important. But there was a problem. A half-ogre was a very rare thing in those days, and with good scientific reasons for being so, and the gnomes without bodyguards were used as leverage against those protected. The greatest concentration of those gnomes were in Tarant, which was still a monarchy at the time. They pleaded with the king for his help, but the last thing the king wanted was a group of rich banker gnomes with power in his kingdom. The beatings continued, and the king and his court turned a blind eye to their plight. That was when, let's call him Mr. X, decided to act. Mr. X? Yes, he hired a prostitute to go home with him one evening, and locked her in the basement, where he also happened to be keeping a full-blooded ogre. You can imagine what happened then. She died giving birth, as was expected, but Mr. X now had his future bodyguard. He recruited some other gnomes, and the kidnappings began in earnest. Actually, I haven't even considered the full extent of how fucked up this is, because, of course, they don't have, well, at least to my knowledge, they don't have, accelerated growth. Like, the gnomes, from what I understand, don't have any way to actually make the half-ogres mature quicker. So, assuming they mature at a similar rate to humans, they would have to birth them and then wait at least, I don't know, 15 years at the least for them to be trained, to be capable to act as bodyguards. So basically, not only is this serial raping and in the process also murder, but it's also slavery, because they are basically breeding those half-ogres to be servants in the first place. So I can believe they are probably getting conditioned to be, obedient and basically treated like animals, like dogs or something, from their very childhood. And in fact, they are probably getting it drilled into their head that it's their one purpose in life to serve the glorious gnomish race or whatever. Which is again, I cannot quite contain how fucked up all of this is, and I totally wasn't expecting it to be here. Let me just reiterate it again, that to me this seems like a much more evil conspiracy than whatever Aronnax is doing. His plans of world domination, to me, at least from what I know about them up until this point, pale in comparison to the mundane evil of the gnomish plot for the world domination. And in fact, I don't know if I wouldn't have enjoyed if the game concentrated more on the latter, because it's so horrifying. I don't know if such an idea, off the top of my head, it's definitely in the top of the most disturbing plot points that I have encountered in video games. And it is much more emotionally scarring to me than any, big evil bad guy with his typical, world domination plot involving magic or something. This is just plain, science, which has been utilized to perpetrate the worst kinds of evil that one can imagine, but there is nothing supernatural about it, and it makes it all the more horrible to me, because things like this could and did happen in real life, in real history. So it kind of blows my mind, and to think of it, it's even weirder because this is all a side quest that I have stumbled upon by accident. And in fact, despite that, it's probably one of the most interesting and most disturbing things I have ever witnessed in this game, and perhaps off the top of my head, in most games that I have ever played. So, what happens then? For safety's sake, they set up a breeding laboratory on the island you visited. Their plan wasn't working out as well as they had hoped, as the women all died giving birth. But the more prostitutes that disappeared, the more authorities were looking into their affairs. They decided to try surgical means of delivery, but the women were too sickly to survive that. Wait. Did they overthrow the monarchy and then kidnap the nobles or something? Because the journal actually made it, a very important point to underscore that their first crop of test subjects was too weak to properly survive all of the experiments because of their poor lifestyle, right? Their diet was poor, and general health was poor as well, because they were poor as people. So is this all related to how the monarchy in Tarant fell? Like, if so, then again, this is so fucked up I cannot even contain myself. Go on. That is when the king's hirelings discovered what was happening. Unfortunately for the king, though, the gnomes had become incredibly rich in this time, rich enough, in fact, to purchase the king's murder and the kidnapping of his queen and her young son, rumor being circulating immediately, pointing to the queen as the killer of her husband. The queen was brought to the island, wasn't she? Man, this is horrible. Yes, she was the patient in the first successful operation. She murdered 3 before she passed, I believe. Soon after, the Industrial Council gained power in Tarant. The disappearances of prostitutes began to slow down, but a mysterious rush of disappearances of the wives and daughters of the political enemies of the council began. Wow. That's... And it's still, like, sure, the lab at the island might be deserted, but from the looks of it, it might still be going on, kind of, because the Industrial Council itself is still operational, is still in power, and still seems to be headed, not even seems, it is headed by a gnome, Mr. Willowspy, but it also seems to be mostly composed of gnomes, maybe not exclusively, but mostly. It is referred to as the gnomish Industrial Council, so obviously that tells you something. That's like, I can't even find words to properly describe how all of that makes me feel. And again, I feel like this would have made for much more interesting and much more horrifying main plot than whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing with Aronax. But maybe that's kind of the point. Maybe this is supposed to illustrate how in the world there are sometimes things like that. A lot of evil is being done sort of on the outskirts of public knowledge and on the outskirts of like important events, and that it is sometimes overshadowed by topics that are flashy or that are sensationalized by the media or something, and in the shadow of those big events, a lot of evil things can happen, and nobody nobody notices. That's horrible, to say the least. They only lasted for a short time, however, as they had now bred enough half-ogre females to no longer need to rely on human breeders. They have hundreds of them now, kept in cages on a breeding farm somewhere. They keep the whole affair in a cloud of mystery by releasing half-truths, lies, and even real information through unstable individuals like Tyrone, so no one believes any of it. Exactly. Everyone believes this to be imaginings of madmen and paranoids. So is this all true? To be honest, I can very well believe that, because obviously the existence of the lab itself and the journal is evidence, and pretty strong evidence, to me at least, because there were also cages with bones and all that. Like, it would be very difficult to stage something like that, but also the whole plan makes a twisted amount of sense, because obviously gnomes, they have a natural knack for merchandise and for trade and for acquiring wealth. And in fact, in the ages past, they used to worship a god of wealth, but they are very small and weak, like physically weak. So, it makes a twisted amount of sense for them to, once they acquired political power, they needed muscle, right? But obviously they themselves are of a diminutive stature and are physically weaker than all of the other races of Arcanum. So you know, this plan is kind of devilishly, well, maybe not brilliant, but it's kind of smart on their part. If you exclude the absolute lack of morals that was required to actually pull it off, they not only removed the monarchy and installed their own government, but they also are producing a steady supply of very physically powerful but mentally easily manipulated slave soldiers, basically. Is that all true? That's a good question. We must not be too anxious to believe it because we want it to be true, or too anxious to disbelieve it because we want it to be false. We must remain neutral in our decision as to whether it is true or not. What? That's absurd. It's either true or it isn't. Then none of it is true. Well, maybe some of it. I'll bring proof to the press. I'll expose this whole thing. What do you have? Nothing. You have a journal that was left for you to find on purpose, which could have been written last week. What have you seen? Why, I believe you saw an abandoned warehouse. Nothing more, save for your twisted imagination made it out to be. Well, to be honest, I do believe I saw, obviously, the graphical element is kind of limited, but that's on the account of the game itself being rather graphically limited. But it seemed to me that the layout of the facility clearly betrayed some kind of human experimentation angle, because it had like dissection tables, surgical tables with like bindings, and it also had, you know, actual human remains and like vats of blood or something, or maybe it was what is it called, amniotic fluid, whatever, something of a biological variety. And of course there were also the prisoner pens, right, the cages outside. So it was clear to me that it was a facility that was used to carry out some kind of biological experiments. Why are you doing this? We always need more converts to spread the word. You might have had real information, but now you don't know anything. What have I told you that? What have I told you that is real? Feel free to tell anyone everything I have told you. I am sure the press would love to hear a story. Perhaps. Good day to you, sir. It has been a pleasure. To be honest, because I guess this will end up in me killing him, which I am tempted to do, because he himself said that the Gnomish Council operates on the idea of spreading deliberate misinformation peppered in with like small tidbits of truth by themselves, by design, to confuse people. So he has told me a lot, and assuming all of it is true, I feel it is disadvantageous to the Gnomish Council. So he might be my ally, but he might also be, their agent, specifically pretending to not be one. But I don't have any solid proof, so I'm not going to kill him on a hunch, because that would kind of run contrary to my morality, as it were. But I feel like going to the press is going to accomplish nothing, because the press, nobody is going to believe this, basically, especially with the influence the Gnomish Council has. Because you can pretty much write anything in a paper, and people probably realize that papers often write outrageous claims just because they want to, draw people in. So I don't think it's going to accomplish anything, but what else could I even do? Like, if I do nothing, then obviously nothing will happen. if I go to the press, then maybe someone, like most people will disregard it, right? But maybe some crazed conspiracy theorist guy is going to read it, and it will confirm some of his own suspicions, and then he will, investigate deeper. Maybe something, much as I did, much as Tyrone did, and the other guy. So maybe something will come of it in the end. I am leaving now. What is it? I've returned to kill you. I actually haven't, although I am tempted to do that, but I don't have any solid proof that he is part of the Gnomish Council. And to be honest, even if he was, if I killed him, it in itself would change nothing, because he's just a pawn. Like, he's not the leader of the council, and he's probably not even an important member. He's just their lackey, a messenger of some sorts. Is there an office of the Tarantian here? I do believe there is, but I think it's on the other side of the street. I will go to the press with it. As I said, it might be pointless, but in my mind it can't produce worse effects than not doing anything, because sure, I guess it lets the gnomes know that their scheme is kind of compromised, but again, doing nothing is by definition going to accomplish nothing. So, like, what good does it serve if the gnomes don't know that their scheme is pierced, if I do nothing to stop it anyway? Like, it's kind of pointless. Caledon police, security prison. Maybe it was on the other side. Damn it. I should have checked. But overall, this was very interesting and very horrifying, to a much larger degree than I was expecting, and it kind of caught me off guard in that regard. So basically, props to the game developers for hiding such traumatizing content in a random side quest that you might have not even stumbled on. Okay, so I guess it is not here after all. This is the museum. I could have sworn there was an office of the Tarantian here as well. I guess first let me wait until the morning. It's going to be a little bit easier to navigate. Okay, this is a tavern. Am I losing my mind? I was pretty certain there was an office in here as well. Oh, maybe it's actually here. No, this is Caledon Police Headquarters. Yeah, right, this is it. Hello. I have evidence of a conspiracy you might be interested in. Yeah, that even sounds crazy. As I said, at face value, I don't think anything is going to come out of it, because in a greater scope, because most people are going to disregard it as ramblings of an insane person. It's even less credible because obviously I don't have photographs or like a movie of the evidence. I only have the journal, which, as the gnomes said, and I unfortunately think he is right, it might as well be dismissed as something that I have written specifically for controversy. So I don't think anything will come of it in the greater scope, but I do hope that someone who's already interested in this kind of thing might be persuaded because of the story to dig deeper. So I have evidence of a conspiracy you might be interested in. A look of suspicion crosses his face. What do you mean conspiracy? Is this some kind of a jest? The Industrial Council has been illegally breeding half-ogres. Let's say I was interested in the story. I would need proof. It's all right here. Show him the journal. By the gods, this is astounding. I can make my reputation with the book like this. If you leave this with me, I'll print it in its entirety. It will be the story of the century. Again, I don't think it will be, but doing nothing is by definition going to accomplish nothing. So let's at least try this. Okay, here it is. Give him the book. He looks through the book. I cannot believe this. This is what I've been waiting for. I'll write this up now to get it to the tomorrow's paper. Okay, good day to you. And with that, I feel I'm finally done. And I can leave for Thanatos. Actually, I would probably take a ship to Blackroot, because it's going to be much quicker. Not to mention, the passage to Thanatos is supposedly taken from Blackroot in the first place. Do you need something? I wish to board passage aboard your ship. Where would you like to go? How about Blackroot? Passage for 6. Okay, so is this where Edward Teach's ship was? Or do I need this guy? Ship builder. Hello again, how are you doing? I wish to speak with you about a boat. Yes? Do you have one for sale? He smiles wildly at you. Why, yes I do, as a matter of fact. He indicates the boat behind him. We just finished building this one right here. It's a real steal. At 50,000 coins. I don't have that many. I don't have that much coin. Perhaps we can work something out? He laughs. I'm truly sorry, but I have no epic adventure to send you on to retrieve a magical family heirloom. 50,000 is the price, and that is final. Okay, but what about Edward Teach? Like, where was he even? I could have sworn he was in Ashbury, because obviously he had a ship, and last time he was kind of helpful as far as getting to my destination is concerned. So I think I will go back to Ashbury and see if he's still there. Anyone new here? Oh, a bunch of bandits, interesting. Dante. Oh, I was just looking for him. Captain Edward Teach. Well, if it isn't my old friend, a friendly face, I've been needing to see one, matey. The days have been dark since we last sailed. What happened, Captain Teach? I lost my boat, matey. Went and got too drunk one night and found myself gambling with Killian Drake, an old sea captain who knows his way around dice. He played me, matey. He played me a fool, and I lost me boat. Where is Drake? He be around. He drinks a lot around here at the Barnacle, and he's not afraid to tell a soul about how he's got his new boat. Maybe I could help. I might need to call in on that favor. That's mighty nice of you, matey. And you know, if there's anything I can do for you, old Teach will do it. Thank you. I need to get to the island of Thanatos. Thanatos, that's even crazier than wanting to go to the Island of Despair, but I'm figuring it's important, and I know it's the way Mr. Bates would want it. I suppose there are a couple of different ways you might get there. One, you could buy a boat from a shipbuilder, which ain't cheap. And what are the other options? You might be able to get a dice game with old Drake, but he's no rubber leg when it comes to dice. He's lucky and he plays for big stakes. I wouldn't be tossing with him unless you're real lucky, and he won't be playing with just anyone. Old Drake knows a gambler when he sees one. And the other solution? Well, I'm a little leery of you even mentioning it. It's not something I even like to think much about, much less spill it out of me blowhole. But you seem to need help, and I owe you one. I would really appreciate any help you would be able to give. Did I ever tell you the story of how I came to own the Gypsy Shadow? No, you wouldn't tell me of it before. Well, it was before all that we have been through. Would you like to hear it now? Surely. Of course I will. Well, matey, by the time I could start growing a beard, I'd sailed from one end of the land to the other, from the southern shores of the Weeping Maidens to the northern ice-choked waters of the Jailer's Hump. Ain't nothing of the sea that I hadn't seen, and most of it twice. At the time, I was running out a Caledon, first mate. What? At the time, I was running ale out of Caledon, first mate for a real and a crusty old captain, who went by the name of Jack Skellybones, half pirate and half devil, with the mouth and blue-gilled she-demon, and the breath to match. Jack used to drink so much that we'd pray for tailwinds. If the journey take too long, he'd start drinking the profits. Sounds like quite a character. That'd be the truth, matey. Old Jack would fight here if he thought he breathed on him wrong. He had more scars on his face than most men had all over, and he could tell you a story from each one, and never were they the same. He was a hard man, but fair to his crew, and he loved the sea, matey, almost as much as he loved his boat, the Gypsy Shadow. Interesting. What happened to him, Captain? Well, one night, we was all drinking in the Sour Barnacle down Blackroot way, and old Jack got real drunk and started in with his stories. And as the night goes on, the tales got taller and we laughed harder, and we were all having a grand old time. And so, Jack had one too many, and started saying as to how he was the greatest pirate on the seas of Arcanum, and how if it was anyone, and how if there was anyone who thought they were crustier, then he would have something to say about it. And what happened then? He started spitting and hollering, and then, after upending every table in the place, he said that he was the greatest pirate who had ever lived, tougher than Ruby Dirk, Black Sam Bellamy, and even mightier than Stingy Pete himself. Stingy Pete? Who's that? I don't talk much about him. I'll just say that Stingy Pete was the meanest, cold-blooded, murdering pirate who had ever put to sail, and be done with it. There are stories and legends, and most of them are true. He's been dead for more than 200 years, and people still whisper his name when they talk about him. I see, and what of Jack Skellybones? Well, after he said that, no one much felt like drinking after, so we put old Jack to bed. You see, a pirate is mean, but he knows what to be joking about and blustering about, and calling out to the ghost of the Stingy Pete ain't one of them. And so, well, a week or so later, we were out to sea, and it was the new moon, so it was dark, and strange westerly... What's a westerly? Strange westerly had appeared, and brought in a bank of low clouds, thick as lamb stew. And then we saw the other ship, just resting off the starboard, silent as death, and as still as if she was anchored, her sails tattered, her timber rotten, and then we heard the screams. What happened? We found old Jack in his cabin with 2 daggers in him, one for each eye, and the sign of the evil eye carved into his chest. That was the very sign old Stingy Pete used to leave on his victims. We ran out to see who was on the other boat, but it was gone, taking the clouds and the westerly with it. That's rather frightening. Being the first mate, I took command and the ownership of the Gypsy Shadow. I have never laid eyes on the other ship since, and I hope I never do. I see, but what does all of this have to do with getting to Thanatos? I'm saying I've seen this boat, and I know it to be real. If you could get this boat without getting yourself run through by his ghost, you would have yourself a boat. Seems a little bit flimsy. How do you find a ghost pirate's boat? Years ago, I found a secret cove, and there on the beach was an unmarked grave. Unmarked except for the sign of Evil Eye, which is the sign Stingy Pete used to carve on his victims. I get out of there fast, without even looking for treasure. That could have been the place where he was buried, and if it was it is said most spirits return to their graves. At the very least, I might find some clues there. Yes, matey, I agree. I'll mark it on your map with the location of the cove. Looks like you have a few options: buying, gambling, or Stingy Pete. I don't like any of them, but good luck. Thank you, Captain. I'll keep you abreast of the situation. Okay, so to be honest, I have zero skill in gambling, and I have not enough gold to actually afford the boat myself. But even regardless, I feel like the option with checking out the ghost of the Stingy Pete and taking his ship is simply the most interesting. So I will go there anyway, just because I feel like it's the most potentially rewarding in terms of actual story, but also because the other options are simply unavailable to me. I have zero skill in gambling. I guess I could use a fate point, and I don't have enough gold to buy the ship for myself.
How may I help you?
What is it you need?
So...
How may I help you?
Why are we doing that? I wanted to go onto the world map. So let's go into the cove then. Now where would it be? Stingy Pete's Cove, okay. A haunted cove, okay. Stop, if you want to live, give us 200 coin. And what if I won't? Okay, those random encounters are starting to become a little tiresome at this point, but oh well. I'm going to bear through it. Overall, I'm having a lot of fun. Actually, I haven't been so invested in a game in a really long time. I have spent a really long time playing this so far, but I've loved every second, and there has been a lot to do. Okay, what do I want? Persuasion is maxed. I guess I will buy the next schematics, right? Because this will also make my aptitude greater, and maybe I can... Okay, it seems Yeah, lack the expertise. So I guess it must still be greater. You get a point of perception. You get a point of dodge, I guess. Will help you in combat. You get a point of you get a point of willpower for fatigue, maybe? Or I guess constitution adds more fatigue, but it's closer it's closer to maxing out willpower, so I'll give him a point of willpower. You what can you get? I guess it's too late to start developing any of the other branches, so you get a point of picking locks. Because Virgil stubbornly refuses to actually use his unlocking cantrip, even though that would make everything easier. Okay, what else can he have? I guess intelligence? Intelligence affects several skills as being the limiting factor in learning spells. Or constitution for fatigue, I guess. Because fatigue is basically mana for him. Okay, so this is the grave then. Can I do anything with it? Doesn't look like it. Stingy Pete. You see a spirit in front of you. It is a skeleton dressed in tattered rags and a large black hat and wielding an evil-looking saber. Its eyes glow with an unholy light. Who be treading upon my grave? Who be trying to get their hands on me treasure? Prepare to die, ye land-loving goat bugger. No one sees the evil eye of old Stingy Pete and lives. Wait, I'm not here to take anything, I just want to talk. Talk? What would a rubber land ledge... what? Talk. What would a rubber-legged bilge fish like you want to be talking about with the ghost of Stingy Pete? I've been sailing the seas of Arcanum for more than 200 years, and I drink bloody ale and gnaw on the bones of priests and maidens. I am not looking to talk. I just need a moment to explain. To explain? What is it that you need to explain, matey? You be digging around for me bones and looking for me treasure. To a pirate, that'd be worse than finding you baiting your hook with me wife. Listen, I only need your boat. My boat? I cared for my wife less than with this boat. Why in the name of all that is unholy I would give you my boat? You're speaking gibberish, and I had more of an earful for it. Wait? And I had more than an earful of it. A soul as tormented as me, as my own, has got little patience for the blubbering of the living. Tormented? Don't you enjoy being a bloodthirsty pirate ghost? Enjoy it? The ghost seems a little surprised at the question, the fires in his eyes dimming a little. Are you daft, matey? I was the crustiest, meanest, most bloodthirsty pirate who has ever lived, and none of what I did was when I was alive compares to the things I've seen when I was dead. What have you seen? I have seen the souls of the dead who walk this world, and I have seen the soul of all of my victims, and they torment me as I will still be tormenting the living, and it be their pain I feel every day and every night on these glassy seas, and their dead eyes, they be staring out at me from these murky depths. I see, and who had cursed you to this fate? I cursed myself. I spilled the blood of innocents, desecrated holy places, and the worst thing I ever did, I broke a pirate's blood oath. Even without the first two, I deserved what I got because of the last. I shouldn't even call myself a pirate after what I did. So you're saying you don't want to be here? No, but I've got no choice. I was cursed, matey, cursed from the day I died, to sail the seas forever, and haunting those souls who be taking my name in vain, to strike terror in a pure of heart, to be giving little ones nightmares. Is there any way to break the curse? Break the curse? The ghost is silent for a moment, contemplating. And why would you want to do that, matey? Why would one such as yourself want to be helping the evil ghost of old stingy Pete? Your boat, Captain. I need your boat. Tell him your story. That'd be quite a story, and one I'd not be inclined to believe when I was flesh and blood. But shatter me squid's beak if I haven't seen stranger things since. Perhaps there is something we might be able to do here. Any help you might have would be greatly appreciated, Captain. Well, I can't be giving up this boat on account of the curse. It'd be my fate to sail these old timbers until the end of time, but I know a way we might be able to break the curse if you'd be willing to do a little legwork. I might. What needs to be done? Well, there'll be three things, if my suspicions are correct. 3 wrongs to right, and the curse will be broken. Tell me of them. Which one of them would you like to hear about? The first task. The first task is an easy task. I told you, I killed many of innocents in my time, and a good and pure man by the name of Jonas Williamson. Killed him for the silver buckles on his boots, but mostly for the sport of it. I laughed while he bled into the gutter, crying out to me that I spare his family. That's pretty vicious. How do you make that right? Well, his family, they fell on hard times without him, and the Williamsons have been poor ever since. You need to dig up my treasure, including those silver buckles, and give them to whatever is left of the Williamsons. My treasure is buried a little north of here. He points to the north of where you are. Where are the Williamsons? Here, I'll show you on the map. The ghostly finger points to a location on the east coast. I know they still live here. I've sailed there in the years since I died. It is not a nice place. I see. Don't be thinking you can keep some of the treasure for yourself. These curses, they be old and smart, and if you be trying to cheat them, then I'm going to be sailing these seas, and I'm going to be coming after you. Savvy that, matey? Of course, and the other tasks? The second task. The second task, that might be a little more complicated. There is a temple in the hills, just off the Gulf of Moribund, in the little town called Voriden, and many years ago I was pillaging the surrounding countryside, and I broke into the place and stole some holy relics and desecrated the sacred altar, and sure enough, the old monks threw a curse on me. What needs to be done? They didn't care about their holy relics, but I'd be thinking they might got the robes in a bundle over the altar. You see, I spilled some wine and ale over it, and I might have even relieved myself on it. It has been a long night, you know. I can see why they might have the problem with that. Yeah, they weren't singing hymns when we left. Anyways, that altar of theirs, I think it needs to be replaced. You'll have to talk with the monks to to find out what needs to be done, Savvy? Here is where the temple is. I've already done that. Tell him of Edwin Wallows. And you have. Looking like the stars are shining down on this evil old pirate for once, matey. That's one less thing you need to do. Good, now the other tasks. And the third task. The last task will be the most difficult. You see, when I was getting on in years, there was nothing I hadn't done, and nowhere I hadn't sailed, and no treasure I hadn't laid my hands on. There was only one thing I wanted, and I wasn't even sure if it existed, and I made it my business to find out. And what was it? The Bangilian Scourge. And what is the Bangilian Scourge? The Bangilian Scourge is the most evil piece of weaponry ever wielded by any soul in the land of Arcanum. Legend says it was forged in the blood fires at the Bangilian depths, and that virgins and children were thrown into the fire to keep it stoked. That's pretty horrible. Horrible doesn't even come close. It is also said that the Bane of Cree cut down a whole battalion of elven warriors with it before he was banished, and that Lorik wielded it during the clan wars, and that any but the most evil of people die at the mere sound of it. Sounds like an evil blade. Yeah, matey, an evil blade it be. I wanted it more than anything in the all of Arcanum, and I planned on getting me hands on it. And what happened? At the time, I had me a crew of 7 of the most black-hearted and soulless pirates, and they all agreed that it was a fine piece of treasure to go after, and we took a pirate blood oath to stand one by one in the share of the treasure. And so we searched Arcanum for it, and found it one day we did, in the swamps of the Dark Fens, down in the Bangilian depths. And then it has been buried there for centuries, a beautiful sight, its blade as black as onyx, and carved in ancient runework, and I held it in my hands, and it called to me. What did you do with it? We all did nothing, matey. That day, while everyone was asleep, that cursed blade twisted my mind, and it told me that my crew was mutinous and looking to get rid of me, and so I killed them all in their sleep, matey, cut all their throats from ear to ear. When I woke in the morning and seen what I have done, I thrown the blade down and ran out of there. And the Bangilian Scourge? It still lies there, as far as I know, among the bones of my murdered crew. You must destroy that evil blade. At the bottom of the cave, we found it is a great furnace. Toss it in there, and let the world be done with it. Here is where the depths are. He points to an area of your map in the northernmost part of Arcanum. And the other tasks? Okay, I've heard them all. Is there anything else? That's all, matey. Will you help me? If you do those things, I give you my word as a pirate that I will give up my ship. She is old, but there's not a better vessel that has ever sailed Arcanum's seas. I'll do it. I wish you luck on your quests, matey. If you finish your tasks, return here. I will give you my boat and my thanks. I will do that, Pete. Okay, to be honest, once again, this kind of situation has already cropped up, and I feel like the extent of his crimes is irrelevant, because even if he was the worst person that has ever lived in the history of forever, then the amount of evil that he has committed is finite, but his punishment is infinite, right? Because he's cursed to be an undead forever. So I feel like that's a breach of justice. I feel like a finite amount of crime should warrant a finite amount of punishment. So even if I didn't need to, even if I didn't need his ship, I would probably still help him, because after all, from what I understand, it's not that he's going to get returned to life, he's just going to die, which I guess after all of those 200 years that he has lived in his undead form, you know, that's easily punishment enough. But how do I get out his treasure? Does the journal tell me? Wait, he said the treasure was supposed to be in his grave, right? Ahoy, matey, did you succeed in finishing your tasks? No. But I don't... Damn it, I might be a little bit too tired to properly... Like, maybe I will have to actually look back at the video in the meantime, but I'm pretty sure he said it was supposed to be in his grave, and yet there's nothing here. Anyway, I will probably consult my own previous video, because this episode has been long enough anyway, so I'm going to just... And I'm very tired, it's difficult for me to read, especially in a language that is not my native one, so it's time to finish this for now. That's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!